Hey everybody, I'd like to welcome you all to today's edition of The Artist is Storyteller. This is presented as part of our cluster reunion virtual programming in October and November of 2021. Alan Goya has been hosting this series. This is the fourth of five editions that we'll be presenting during these weeks. And his guest today is Kent Brisby from the class of 1978. Alan, I'll turn this over to you.
Okay, well, let's start at the beginning. Kent, how did well, first of all, let me add a little bit of a disclaimer again. This is another one of my roommates. This was not intended to be a tour of the roommates that I've had in college, but there are a couple that weren't. Like next week's interview with Brownlee, we were not roommates, or Rick Stevenson, but we weren't roommates in Whitman, but Kent showed up at Whitman, and you have your lookbook picture, Kent, up there. Bring your lookbook.
It's up.
There it is. Okay, so Kent Brisby starts at Whitman. We met, and Kent, how did you well, this is Kent then, but before we start this journey, and you came in from Poway, California. Actually, you came from Micronesia, isn't that where you last lived?
Well, Micronesia, then California. So California to Whitman.
Okay. So how did you get to Whitman?
A little bit inadvertently. I just had a not entirely positive relationship with my stepdad. So I was looking for a school that was really far away.
Far away.
And someplace that was way smaller than my high school. And I thought someplace with seasons would be great. So I looked everywhere at all these liberal arts colleges where I ended up looking. And finally I picked one. And I said, tough, I'm going to this place in Walla Walla, Washington. So there. And my stepdad said, yeah, that works. I went there. So that was very disappointing.
Yeah, it was very disappointing. You haven't been to.
Yeah. It ended up being a good thing. I came to college early and actually ended up working the summer with one of his, frat brothers who had a farm, Dwelly Jones.
Dwelly Jones?
Yeah.
Really? Oh, I even knew Dwelly Jones. Okay.
Well, you knew Junior probably.
Okay, yeah.
AKA Skook, I think was his name. Yeah. So that's how we ended up at Whitman. And ran into a few other surprises there. Some people from California that I didn't know, and just kind of happy surprises.
And you were a theater major.
I was never a theater major.
No, you never. What were you? What major were you?
Well, I thought I would be a political science major when I started, and then realized you have to write a lot.
Oh yeah.
Read a lot, and I was kind of I got to the point in high school that I really wasn't doing more than I had to for the academic side of things, which was not really the right approach here. So I ended up being an English and music major at Whitman. Yeah.
Music major, and then before we go on with this story over here, let's play. I'm sorry, we're kind of a little out of order, but let's play the clip.
All right.
And really, it's from Whitman, and this tape. Let me kind of explain this tape a little bit. Kent has had actually he has responsible a lot for me leaving the islands and coming to the mainland on a vacation for a 3-week vacation. I had the dream job in Hawaii. This is 1980, I think. Shooting surf footage and girls walking on the beach in bikinis for the local CBS affiliate. And the season ended, and Kent called me up and says, hey, why don't you come to San Diego and be in a play? I need a Japanese actor. And he said, come over, we'll do a play. I'm opening a brand new theater in San Diego, which kind of started this kind of interesting, probably for me, a shorter than yours, maybe 5-10 year theater career. And but it kind of ended up in this next piece we're going to see, more of a contemporary piece. Let's play your piece on Gauguin.
Okay. This is a screen share, so it's a little bit different, and hopefully you can hear this well. Goes here, audio on, and play.
All the joys of the free life are mine, beyond corrupt convention politic. I enter into truth, into nature. Civilization is what makes you sick. And in the shadow of the mountain, underneath the mango tree, Noah, Noah, flowing sweetly, where the river meets the sea. Every day things get better, my neighbors and I as one. My feet go bare, my naked skin no longer fears the sun, which every morning will arise for me as everyone. The freedom of simplicity I learned once from someone. And in the shadow of the mountain, underneath the mango tree, Noah, Noah, flowing sweetly, where the river meets the sea. And in the shadow of the mountain, underneath the mango tree, Noah, Noah, flowing sweetly, where the river meets the sea. La 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 la, where the river meets the sea. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, where the river meets the sea.
Very nice, Kent. I think that's kind of like, since I've known you, you've been this ultimate creator. I mean, you write, I knew you perform, but you write, you do music, you fix things, you make props, you make costumes, and you invent stuff, and you make puppets and things like that. And you've continued to do that all these years. And I'd like you to tell that story. And you've also been telling some really new stories that have been, and you and Ginger, and this is Ginger up here, Kent's wife and my friend. Hi, Ginger. And it's kind of this interesting journey. And one of the things that we're interested in talking about is the artists as storytellers, and these are stories. I truly feel like we are the stories we hear and we understand and that we hear, and that's one of the reasons I'd like you to kind of talk about your journey here. I first saw you in 1980 when you and Ginger, started the Pacific Asian Actors Ensemble, and maybe let's start with that and kind of talk about where you've gone since then.
Okay, I think there is a little bit of a through line here. It kind of makes sense to get back to this Gauguin piece at the very end of this conversation. But the way it started, I started working for this theater in San Diego. There was a guy here who kind of envisioned himself as the West Coast version of Joe Papp at the
Mhm.
Marquee Theater. He wanted to create a public theater. So he kind of brought two or three of us in and said, find some interesting projects. so, I mean, we started a Mexican, one of the, as far as I know, one of the first Latino Mexican American theater projects in San Diego was there, and there was a theater for the deaf, and there was original playwrights projects were going on, and one of the projects ended up being something called Pacific Asian Actors Ensemble, because there were some people in the community that were kind of looking for a space or a venue to work, and it kind of suited the self image of the guy who owned this big chunk of property. So several things fell or followed from that, and one of them was the Pacific Asian Actors Ensemble. The other name that you didn't mention is Tom Sesma, who was a big part of that. Who
Right.
I don't know if you follow things in New York, you'll see him occasionally.
And Lion King, and for long times in Vegas, actually. He was in Las Vegas. in
Right.
Lion King.
And I think he's doing, yeah, I'm not sure what project he's doing right now. He traveled around with that ill-advised, the times they are changing, but he was the co-lead in that with Twyla Tharp, that was here at the Globe and opened on Broadway and closed as quickly as they could close it. But he works, he works a lot, professional theater. So the idea with Pacific Asian Actors Ensemble is we would find, or the company was interested in finding non-standard opportunities, so they're not just replaying the same parts, the same handful of parts, a small handful of parts that were part of the Western catalog here. So, we did a little bit of that, and we were able to work some of that at the Marquee Theater, working with David Henry Wong, with FOB, and but also, doing Brecht and doing some other projects that were not being tackled, certainly not with Asian casts or even including Asian actors typically around town at the time. And we're talking about the early 80s. The Marquee Theater did eventually lose its funding sources at the time, as I think Ronald Reagan had a big part to that. And the pendulum swung that away, and it kind of stopped doing these experimental things. And one of the upshots of that was that the Pacific Asian Actors Ensemble, which we pulled you into that by that point, Alan, we transferred to focus on doing children's theater. Just because it seemed like there was more of an opportunity to maybe try some different things and give opportunities to diverse performers. So we started with that and did that for a few years, and the Magic Machine, and we ended up doing a project at the San Diego Zoo. And at that point, both Alan and I were married and kind of going a little bit different ways. There was one at one point in there when I think we were both pretty much starving at the theater, Alan, and one neighbor said, "Oh, I've got this job at this place called Motivational Systems, but there's only one job. So you two guys figure out who's going to go and start working there." And I don't remember if we did John Campo or flipped a coin or whatever, but Alan went, and yeah. He kind of went not mainstream, but regularly.
I got a job.
He got a job, and I was still working kind of freelancing in different theater projects.
And I think my wife was also pregnant too. Yeah, she had a baby too. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
One of the motivators is like, okay, here's so much for the acting career. I got babies to deal with.
Well, but doing that children's theater, I got seen by another friend, one of our performers.
Let's talk about the children's theater a little bit.
Okay.
Let's stop here, just because, and this is where, one of the things that, interests me is like, especially the children, how do they get their values? Where do they get their stories and everything? And do you have any pictures here of the Magic Machine? Okay, this is, yeah. Tales of Uncle Remus. Could we do that today here? Could we probably pull that off in this day and age?
Well, with our cast, we might have been able to.
Our cast, the way we casted it, yeah, because it was pretty colorblind. I mean, and species blind for that matter. Okay, but we have in our live audience right now, I want to take advantage of this, an actual child at the time who watched the Magic Machine. One of the things about the Magic Machine, our children have never seen us do the Magic Machine because this was pre-children. So we have Jamie Brown here. Jamie, so what is your memory of the Magic Machine? Is there any specific memories you have?
Yeah, well, I do have memories of being at the Marquee Theater and being in the audience with other children. And I don't remember a specific performance, I have to say. I must have been, I don't know, 5 or 6 at the time.
We did a lot of babysitting for you. Yeah.
I'm sure you did. But I have a lot of fond memories. I think I remember, laughing a lot. I was invited to march in a parade with Magic Machine, which was like brilliant moment in my childhood that I have vivid memories of, because I got to be a part of the parade with the actors, which felt really special. And I remember I wore rainbow suspenders and I had a plastic trumpet, and I got to toot on it every once in a while. And I think, moments like that where you feel a part of something, either as an audience member or part of something, being a part of the parade, those are really formative moments for young kids, right? It's joyful, it's fun, you feel part of community. So I definitely think all those things had a big influence on me.
Right. Do you watch theater? Do you go to very much theater today?
Yeah, well, it was kind of on hiatus for a while for obvious reasons,
Right,
but my parents have always been avid theater goers, and that has rubbed off on me. And so we have been going to, we frequent the Signet Theater, and then my own children are involved in theater with a group called Trinity Theater. They've done performances with them. So definitely a generational thing, and I'm passing the torch. So
Trinity. Now, is that with the gold guys?
no, Trinity Theater was actually started by some of my former students. Sean Boyd.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious. We ran into, I was doing a show at the Lambs, and I ran into a woman whose mother used to do theater. Turns out she was Kat Grayson, not that Kat Grayson, but an actress named Kat Grayson, who was in And the Soul Shall Dance with us way back when.
Right.
It's kind of that was one of the Pacific Asian Actors Ensemble projects just before leading into the Magic Machine. But we digress.
Rigorous. No, actually, but that was a marvelous play. And why theater? Why stay in theater? What fascinates you about theater? Live theater in particular? I think that's kind of where you've been.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Live theater, I guess, because it's there's just an incredible amount of energy in the discovery of the material as a writer and in sharing it with an audience. It's just kind of a multi-dimensional, very rich experience that's kept me coming back to it. We started going into some of as we moved away from the children's theater, we started diversifying the kind of programs we were developing and the shows, including the Sun Cafe. You want to get into that yet?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, one of the projects, or one of the ways that this theater has evolved after we kind of shifted from the Little Magic Machine project to working for National Theater for Children for a few years. which was a big, long-time company out of Philadelphia, but every year they were staging tours of Babes in Toyland or Wizard of Oz, and they asked me to direct it, and I directed it for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. But Ginger, who was in it, is going, there are other stories that you might want to look at, or maybe we could do something with, and that's kind of where we took a jump from there. We moved, started doing the White Snake story. Here's an example of producing this show, for example. It was one of the first projects that we did, which was a family-friendly traditional mythology from Chinese culture. And we carried that on and moved it to the traveled in San Diego, Los Angeles, San Francisco. We took this around the areas as much as we could afford here. There was a time when schools were actually able to support some of that, and we took advantage of that. But we did, projects like this. We also expanded to doing, let's see, this projects with the Hawaiian Club, stories based on mythology from Pacific Island, and the project, the company that we created out of that is called the Asian Story Theater, and it is involved in mythology, arts, and themes from Asian and Pacific Islander communities. And that's something we've been doing, Ginger and I have been doing for the last 15 years or so. And that's how we actually got Alan back involved. I called him, he was in Las Vegas, and said, Alan, come on down. We're doing a show called Stories of the Sun Cafe, which is this old restaurant in downtown San Diego that had been part of the San Diego history of at a time when only Asians could live in that area, or that was the only area Asians could live in. Better way to put it. Yeah, we interviewed people in the community with a lot of help from Joyce. In fact, Joyce Teague, for context in the Japanese community, to develop material and then work with different writers to stage a production. And a couple of years later, we did a similar project with the Filipino community called Halo Halo, with the California Humanities Council grant. And we staged that. There's just a lot of stuff to explore, and it's been I think that's kind of what keeps me going. And go ahead.
No, yeah. Well, that is the what I think is really interesting is like you are discovering stories. I mean, that I didn't know about, and stories that weren't told, and especially the subtleties of let's say communities. I mean, the Asian community is definitely not a monolith. Even within, let's say, the Chinese community, there are different groups, and within each ethnic community. And I think that you've had to balance these. You've had to balance these different forces here, and how have you done that? I mean, that's kind of a delicate balancing act here, and and quite frankly, like the Asian communities are kind of like all thrown into one place where Asians could live, but definitely they weren't all the same, right?
Oh no, of course. Yeah, and the more you find out about it, of course, the more diversity and the more variety, and the differences that you kind of discover, and those are fascinating and kind of thrilling. So that is, again, that's part of I think the intrigue of it, and we're coming up on a half hour. I'm not sure what format you have here, but let me tie this back in, because I really do think that I did this Gauguin project a few years ago, and while I was doing it, I mean, we did it with the support of Asian Story Theater, because a couple of the places that he spent a lot of his time are in Pacific Islands, the Marquesas and Tahiti. And also he spent some time in Peru, as a kid. And we've done some things on Pacific Rim, so that was our connection there. But I kind of understand what the guy was looking at as he traveled around. Gauguin is an artist that's famously traveled for his era, anyway.
Right.
I mean, whatever you think about some of his other judgments, creatively, is a pretty interesting guy. And if you follow the places that he went, you can see the impact of the discoveries, his discoveries there, in his art, translated into his art. I mean, you might say that his travels were more as a, oh, what would they say? He was more of a pirate than an archaeologist
Mhm.
or an anthropologist. You
Mhm.
know, he kind of sampled of places and what consumed them and transformed them into a medium that he could deal with, being his painting.
Well, Kent, are you Paul Gauguin?
I don't think so.
Well, I think you're a little bit like Paul Gauguin. I mean, looking at your background, just the, I mean, the I want to say the white man going into Micronesia, you're experiencing Micronesia, that multicultural, and I know in Micronesia, you're a minority all of a sudden.
Yeah.
It's probably a different experience. And then coming back to Whitman, but this kind of stories that you've told are these you've always taken it with this, your particular vision and adapted it and made it your own, in your own little twist. It's kind of like your theme to me is like, I don't know how many times you've used "in the mood," but it's more than one play. I know that, at least 2 to 3, I would think. But you keep on telling these stories using that same vocabulary of tricks up your sleeve, and it's been marvelous from the start. It's how we met right early on, was really the Whitman Radio Theater, and I think that from that moment on, I knew that here is a guy that you made theater kind of like, with radio, we could do anything as long as you made them believe you could take them anywhere. And but you need to have these little symbols, and theater has a way of and I think you have that particular ability to take things, especially in theater, minimal things, and make people believe in them, because you're kind of a black box kind of guy for the most part, I would say. Would you say that mainly because of low budgets, or I think you would have gone that way anyway, because you could take an object and tell a story, or a little scraps or puppets or whatever it took to tell the story is how you would do it.
Well, that's nice of you to say it, and I appreciate that, Alan. And yeah, my priority has never been about finding the biggest budget or the biggest project. Finding stories that are meaningful to me and that I think could be meaningful with audience and people that we interview and participate in developing the different projects as we go. Working on the Gauguin thing, it definitely gave me time to consider that aspect of myself. But honestly, I mean, one of the projects that have taken that on is, and currently I'm working on, is a project that has Gauguin, Van Gogh, and Cézanne, all 3 of them interacting together in a kind of immersive theater musical project.
Right.
So that's something that I'm working on right now, kind of exploring.
Right.
So
now, with your particular, and you'll tell the stories of these people again to a new audience.
Yeah.
And why is this important, Kent? Why is this work important?
Well, I'd be curious to see why is it important. I am, I've gotten feedback over the years from different people that have sometimes profound reactions to seeing their stories retold. But it's not
Right.
because I think I'm this super storyteller of the world here. That I try to base the projects that I work on the specifics of people that I interact with, things that intrigue me, things that seem important, meaningful to me. It's I'm not sure how else to answer that, Alan.
Yeah, well, hopefully, and people recognize, I mean, I think it's the same thing that, Bronley is next week, but, one of the things I've talked to artists is they're always surprised on, you write it and you create the piece, and you have your own favorite pieces. It's always interesting what are other people's favorite pieces of your work. I mean, what maybe your favorite, it's really different for somebody else because they react to it. It's their part of their story. And I think that's always the interesting part about art. It's like you're trying to say something, but really it's the audience or the viewer or the reader or whatever who's going to digest it and make it them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.